Hi Stampers, this is Debbie Henderson from Debbie's Designs. Welcome to a new video. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to be making a twist pop-up card. It looks like a regular card. Oh, and did you see that shimmer on my star? When you open it, it twists and opens this way. Let me show you again. It folds flat. And it opens this way. Isn't that neat? I've seen quite a few videos showing this card, and I learned it through watching a video, and I'm going to give credit to May Made It. She did hers a little bit differently, and I like the way she ended up cutting and folding. So I'm going to show you how to make one of these, and it really is not as complicated as it looks. So let me give you a list of supplies so you can get ready. For ink colors, I used crumb cake, basic black, and mint macaron. For cardstock, we need quite a few layers, so let me get organized. Emerald Envy, 11 inches by 4 1/4, scored in the center at half. And I do have a bunch of score lines here, but we'll go over those once we get going. The second piece is 3 inches by 10 3/4. And the same thing with this one. We're going to score several times, and we'll do that as we go. And the last piece of Emerald Envy is a scrap, and we're going to be cutting out some of these stars. For designer paper, I'm using the Candy Lane, and you're going to need 3 pieces, 2 that measure 3 3/4 by 5 1/2, and 1 that measures 4 by 5 1/4. For Whisper White, we need quite a few pieces. This is going to be the piece that's going to be on the inside of the card. It measures 8 1/2 by 10 3/4. So all I did was take a little sliver off on the end, 1/4 of an inch. So 8 1/2 by 10 3/4, and we're going to score this. We need a scrap piece for stamping. I've gone ahead and cut this piece with the Lots of Labels die, and the die is the largest one out of the set of die. So you need one of those with Whisper White. And then we need 4 pieces. 2 are going to be cut 2 3/4 by 2 1/2, and 2 3/4 by 2 3/8. So that's it for cardstock. The stamp set today that I'm using is the Star of Light, and it can be found in the Holiday Catalog 2016. And I'm also using one of the dies from the Starlight Thinlits dies, and I keep those right inside of my clear case and a magnetic stick-on. And just so you'll know, that's also in the Holiday Catalog, and you can purchase those 2 together as a bundle and save 10%. That's on page 9 of the Holiday Catalog. And just a few little things you're going to need: the clear Wink of Stella, the metal rimmed pearls, liquid glue, scissors, a bone folder, and you're also going to need a scoreboard and your Big Shot machine. So let's get started. So I'm going to bring in my scoreboard and my Whisper White. I've already scored these, but I'm going to show you the measurements as we go here. The first one is at 2 1/4, 4 1/4, and 6 1/4. And then you're going to turn the sheet on the 11-inch side, and we're going to score at 3 7/8, which is the line before the 4, 5 3/8, which is the line before the 5 1/2, and 6 7/8, which is the line before the 7. Okay, that's all we need to do for scoring on this piece. Now I'm going to bring in my paper snips, and we're going to cut off the rectangle, hopefully you can see this, in each corner. And as you're doing the longer score line, make sure you cut that one really straight because that's the one that's going to show on the inside of your card. The other one, not so much. And we're going to trim this a little extra anyway. So I have removed the rectangle, but I want this to fold and not cause so much bulk when I fold it. So I'm going to trim off about 1/4 of an inch diagonal. And you can just eyeball that because it's not going to show anyway. So this is the piece we just cut off. You're just going to make a diagonal slanty cut right there. So I'm going to do this here with this one also. I'm going to go diagonal and cut this one really nice and straight. And you're going to do this with all 4 corners. And if you don't want to mess up, you can go ahead and cut this like I did on the first one. Cut it rectangular shaped first and then remove the little strip if that's easier for you. And you don't even need to remove this if you don't want to. It just makes it less bulky. Okay, so this is what your cardstock piece should look like once you're done all your cutting. Okay, now this is going to be the most difficult step out of the whole card. It took me a second to figure this one out, but it's really not that bad. You notice where the score lines meet in your center. That's your center point. You're going to be using that to create your next fold. You're also going to be using the score line in the center on this tab and the center on this tab. You're going to bring this over and line this up so the score lines line up together. And as you start pressing down, you kind of have to watch right here and make sure that the fold is going to be on that center point. Okay, so I've got this all lined up here. And as I'm pressing, there's my center point right there. Okay, and you're going to press down and score this way. So as you can see, these don't line up. There is a notch there. You have to watch for this center point. You only have to do this twice. We're going to open this up again. We've done it this way. Now we need to go ahead and do it this way. So again, you're going to find your center point here. Bring it over to match your center point here. And then carefully start pressing down. And you'll be able to tell if you're too far up or too far down as you go. Okay, that looks pretty good. So again, I'm going to press down. Okay, so you now have an X in the middle of your sheet. So, and your X should end up right in the center. Now that you have your X in the center, what we need to do is these 2 tabs on this end need to meet when you're folding. So you're going to start folding on the score line, but you're also, see how I've pinched them? So I guess the word pinch would be the appropriate word. Start pinching and start folding towards the center. It kind of does its own thing. See how that just laid there all by itself? And then press down. And you're going to have your little V at the top. And just press down again on the opposite side. And that's how your card opens and closes. Okay, now let's move on to step 2. You're going to need the emerald envy piece that measures 3 by 10 3/4. And again, we're going to use the scoreboard. This time we're going to score at 2 5/8, which is the line after the 2 1/2. 5 3/8, so you go 5, 1, 2, 3. and 8 1/8, which is the line after the 8. Now for this one, we're going to fold halfway, and then you're going to bring the ends over towards the center. Flip it over and do the same thing. So what you're going to end up with is an M. Okay, so that's it for piece number 2. I always make sure my score lines are really nice and crisp. So let's set this aside. So now we're going to do all of our stamping, and then we can start assembling the card. So let's do the lots of labels layer first. And all I used on that one was the big swirly image. And I am stamping on my Stampin' Pierce mat because I'm using the photopolymer stamps. Going to bring in the crumb cake ink. And pretty much all that I did on this piece was fill it up with swirls. I love this swirl image. It's so pretty. So I'm just going to keep adding the swirls until I feel there's enough. Let's add just a little piece over here. So I'm just creating my own background pretty much using the swirl. And one more. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do to that one. I am going to use the sentiment that I have is the light of heaven. And I'm using basic black for that. And it goes down as far down as you can. Okay, so that one is all set. Now we're going to work on the star. So I'm going to bring in my scrap Whisper White, and I'm using this image. It's all stained, but it works well. We're going to start with the basic black. And then we're going to add a little bit of color with the mint macaron ink and this image. And all of the little dots on the end actually fit in this portion here. It's just going to fill that in. You'll see what I mean. So you need to line those up and see how that colors that perfectly. Isn't that pretty? I'm going to set this aside for a minute because I'm going to cut it and then color it with a clear Wink of Stella. And I want to make sure it's nice and dry. So now we're going to move on to the inside pieces. And as you can see, I don't know if you noticed or not, my swirls are connected on all 4 of these. Now the 2 smaller pieces are on the end. The original video had these all the same size, but when you closed the card, they stuck out on the bottom. So I've made it so that the 2 end panels are a little bit smaller. So what I did is I lined up my pieces. So I've got the 2 small pieces on the ends. I lined them all up side by side. And if it's easier for you to add a little bit of adhesive so they don't move, you can do that. So again, we'll bring in the crumb cake ink. See how they connect? The only bad part is this does stick to the stamp, so you have to kind of keep rearranging. And I've got one more on the bottom. And now I'm just going to add a few on the ends. There's one there. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the star. Bring in the black. I'm just going to separate these and do one at a time. And again, we're using the large star image with basic black. So I'm going to do all 4 of these, and I do place my stars in different areas. Put this one a little higher. And the last one. And now we have to color them all in, again with the mint macaron. And try to keep them in order so you don't forget which one goes next in line. And one more. And then I did use the word shine on all 4, only because my sentiment is a little bit lower, so I just felt that I needed to add something to the, all 4 of these. Okay, so all 4 of those are done. Nope, actually I forgot my little snowflake. I do have this little tiny snowflake. I'm going to add a few with the mint macaron. Just kind of finishes off the little blank spots that you see. Okay, now we're done. So I'm going to set these aside. So now I'm going to bring in my Big Shot machine. And we're going to cut out the star. And I am using my magnetic plate so that it doesn't shift on me. Whoops, you know what? I've got this on left hand. There's no way I would have been able to crank that. There's my star. And the next thing we're going to cut, we need 2 of these green ones, the Emerald Envy. And if you'll notice, I altered it. I wanted all 4 of these to be the same size, so I'm going to show you how to do that. This is one of those little tricks. So we're going to cut one using the die. I'm going to pop that out. Now, I want all 4 of these longest legs to be the same size as these 2. So I'm going to take these 2 long ones, turn it sideways, fit this in there. And as you can see, this one sticks out. So I'm going to cut that, and they're all going to measure the same size when I'm done. And you can see what it took off so that these are all equal. So now let me show you how I layered that on my card. So we now have 2 of the Emerald Envy stars. First, I'm going to bring in the Clear Wink of Stella and color this. That way it'll dry so I can get ready to glue the other layers on the bottom. And I'm just coloring the whole thing in. I'm trying to go fast because this is wet and I don't want my ink to get too wet underneath and smudge it. I'm almost done. Okay, and I'll show you. I don't know if you can see how shiny that is. It's so pretty. There it is. See how pretty that is? Okay, so I need to, the thing is I wasn't able to layer this before because of course it's the same size. So what I'm going to do with the first one is cut off the little pieces. Just cut them right off. You're not even going to see what this looks like underneath, so don't worry about it being super straight. Okay, now we're going to bring the second one in. Add liquid glue in the middle. And then you're going to take the one that has the pieces all cut off and place them over the shorter one. I'm sorry I had to back up a little bit. As I was filming this step, my tablet quit on me because I had no more space left to save. So I got to repeat this. Okay, so we have glue on the first star. I'm going to lay the second star over so the long legs cover the short legs. So we now have an 8-sided star. Whoops, keeps sliding on me. Okay, now I'm going to bring in some Stampin' dimensionals and add them to the back of the white star. I'll just put 3 down. Remove the backing. And then we're going to position this so all of the legs, let me pull it up, all of the legs are in between all of the white legs. See how pretty that is? All nice and layered, and all the green legs are all the same size. Okay, so now let's assemble. We're going to start with the front of the card. So fold the card base in half. And we're going to bring in the 4" by 5½ piece. The other two measure the same, so put those aside. I'm going to glue this to the front. Okay, that goes to the front. And then we're going to bring the lots of label shape and glue that centered to the front. So the front of the card is pretty easy. And then we're going to bring in the star. Whoops. Make sure that's nice and straight. And now I'm going to bring in my metal rimmed pearls. And I did use the medium sized one. That was my last one. So this one is a little bit smaller, but it still works. I can take off the backing. Fingernails are not always a good thing to have. Okay, I had to pause the video so I could take the backing off. Okay, we're going to put that right in the center. Now we're ready to do the inside portion of the card. So I'm going to bring in the white piece that we cut and the green piece. And what we're going to do is take the center line and line it up with the center line. And your cardstock should be, see how I have a little bit sticking out here? Your cardstock should completely be covered. Make sure this is all nice and vertical. You're going to flip this one over, hold tight, and then you're only going to add glue to the upper half above the score line. Press this in place, hold for a couple seconds. Move over to the other side, fold towards the center, but this time we're going to do the lower half below the score line. Press that in place. That's all the gluing that is needed for the mechanism to operate correctly. See, so when we close this, whoops, I didn't wait long enough. Hold on. I'm in a rush. I'm just going to let it sit there and I'll show you once we glue the other layers on. So let's get these glued on. So the first one, and that's going to go there. Let me make sure I've got the right one. Nope, I don't. Okay, this one is my next one. Remember I said to make sure to have them all set up the same, the way that they should go in line, because I still want my swirlies to follow each other. This is my next one. And then my glue should be dry enough so I can show you how the mechanism is going to work. Number 4. So this kind of creates a little scenery if you keep following the swirls. Okay, now I'm hoping it's going to work. Okay, so you'll see that it'll work better once we get it glued inside the card. Okay, now we have one more step before we glue this inside. We need to add designer paper. You can do this in 2 ways. You can glue it so that it's straight across, but I wanted mine to go inside the peak. So how to do that, you're going to take this, position it so that it's equal around all 3 sides. Just like this. Flip it over. And then you're going to bring in a pen or a pencil and trace the little V. Now, when you glue this in place, because it's flowing this way, you want your designer paper going in the same direction. So if you're cutting the V up here, it needs to be cut in the opposite direction. So you're going to turn this one the opposite way, lay them together, and then we're going to cut both layers. If you don't do it this way, one sheet's going to be upside down. We don't want that. Okay, see when I turn this, they're both in the same direction. So now we're going to glue these in place. And it's going to tuck inside. But what I'm watching for is the bottom right here to make sure that all 3 sides are equal, and then I'll push on the inside. Same thing with this one. Tuck it in, but don't press down until you get the front 3 sides equal. Okay, see how good that looks? So my last step before I add the sentiment on the inside is to glue this whole piece to the inside. So now what we're going to do is fold it. And I'm just going to press down on my score lines again because we've added layers, we've added designer paper. I just want to make sure, and don't worry if it sticks out a little bit like that, that's going to happen. We just want to make sure that the whole thing is even on the sides. And make sure it opens upward. So this is the way you want it to go so that your wording is not upside down. You're going to bring in the card, lay it on the inside. And I'm going to add glue to the top. I am adding a lot of glue because there's movement here and you really don't want your card to fall apart on you. Okay, and that looks pretty well centered on all 3 sides. Press down, hold, and then we're going to flip it over and do the same thing on this side. Lots of glue. People are going to be amazed with this card, and they're going to want to open it quite often, so you want to make sure it's not going to fall apart. Now the only thing we have left, and look how nice that opens up. The only thing we have left is to add the sentiment, and I'm just going to close this and let it sit for a minute. Put a block on there. What I did is I cut one of the squares that we cut off the corner, and I cut it to 3 3/4 inches wide. And I'm going to add Merry Christmas on the bottom. And the second sentiment, which says, became the light of the world. So now we can glue that to the inside of the card. And I left room in the center there for somebody wants to sign their name or leave a little message. So there, that's our card. That's what it looks like on the inside with the sentiment. Those are all the layers. And as you close, they turn and tuck in and right inside the card. So there's the card for today. I hope you give it a try. It's really not as bad as it looks. The most important thing is to get your score lines and your fold lines correctly. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a message on my blog, or you can also leave a comment here or email me, and I'll have a list of all the supplies we used today. Have a good day, and thanks so much for stopping in.